everybody. I'm Eric McBride here at MTAC in Muncie, Indiana, and welcome to the Proving Ground. I'm with Chris Kuras from Condition 1 Group out of Miami. Chris, tell us a little bit about Condition 1 Group and who you are.
So, like you said, I'm Chris Kuras. I'm with Condition 1 Group. We are a tactical training company out of South Florida. We have a 9,000 square foot shoot house in downtown Miami. We specialize in CQB, personal protection, and also any range type stuff you'd want to get into. Lots of contract classes, a little bit of government work, a lot of LE work, but a lot of open enrollment classes too, because this should not be specific just to military and LE. If you're a responsible Second Amendment gun owner, there's no reason why you shouldn't have good training and good tactics to defend your family and your loved ones. So we wanted to fill that gap for whoever we could.
No, absolutely. And I think that for a lot of people in the firearms industry, being able to provide those services, that transfer of knowledge for the responsible gun owner is important. So, did you start off just thinking contract work, or did you include the civilian and open enrollment in your thought process?
Our main owner and founder is Dave Van Drill. He's a good buddy of ours. So obviously, he's started. It was DA1 originally back in I think it was like 2017. Dave is retired Coast Guard MSRT, which is their special operations of the Coast Guard, and he retired from there. Did a bunch of contracting, opened up the shoot house, and was basically running it all by himself. Realized how taxing that was, and then started adding us on, and he added myself and a couple other guys on to fill that gap. But he started out just doing open enrollment and a couple contracts like here and there. We're close to a couple military bases around there that don't have shoot houses, so they contract us and we'll train them, or they'll just come use the facility every now and then. It's usually up to them.
Yeah. Man, downtown Miami, that has to be interesting for people that coming from outside of there.
It's good if you want to get out of Indiana in January. You're more than welcome to come down. We'll host you guys. It's definitely fun. South Florida has got its pros and cons, to say the least.
Yeah,
absolutely. I grew up down there, so I love South Florida, but kind of being out in the country is kind of where I want to be from now on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's why I live here.
I'm sick of the city life.
Yep. I was never good for the city, that's for sure. And so anyway, so let's get into some of your teaching styles. I mean,
sure.
So are you the stick to the lesson plan guy, or is it a living, breathing thing? Let's go to the pace of the student.
Go to the pace of the student is normally how I like to roll. We have the bullet points that we always want to keep in sequential order. That's more of a go-by. Mm-hmm. But if a quarter of the class is maybe struggling on something, maybe I didn't present it the right way, or the way I'm presenting it is not really jiving with how they like to learn, I try to find whatever route I need to make it click so the whole class can stay on the same page. Because if half the class is on Chapter 3 and some are still stuck on Chapter 1, and we start doing team-based stuff in CQB, it's just going to frustrate the shit out of everybody. And you don't want that quicksand effect of you start isolating those one or two guys that maybe aren't keeping up, and then the rest of the team, because it's a team-based thing, especially open enrollment classes, like there might be 15 or 20 strangers that are now doing team-based tactics, and you're trying to get them to jive like they've been doing it for months and years together. It's going to be frustrating if there's a couple that aren't keeping up. So it's definitely a crawl, walk, run curriculum. But it's go with the flow for the most part. You can't be super strict, because then, again, if you have to sidebar something, you're kind of limiting yourself and your students.
Yeah, and I looked at you guys' website, and I encourage everybody that's watching to go on the website too and look at the course offerings. There's quite a few of them. Mm-hmm. Out of those courses, which one have you had to change the most? Like lesson plan wise, like change those bullet points.
I wouldn't say lesson plan wise. We went through, so after every class we do a debrief. I was like,
sure.
Hey, what'd you like, what'd you hate? And everybody's like, we want more. Can you make, because we do, our basic CQB is level 1, 2, and 3, and then from there you can go into night vision. So we got some feedback like, hey, let's make level 1, 2, and 3 2 days each. So basically a 6-day curriculum. And it was a good idea in theory, but in reality, nobody wanted to commit a whole weekend to it. So we saw a lot of people that just were afraid to sign up or didn't want to sign up. Our biggest thing is people think like, oh my God, this is like way too high speed for me. It was like our best like tacticians, like we were talking about Shannon. Shannon's a retired pharmacist. And we got retired doctors, we've got real estate guys, we've got basic businessmen who are great at CQB because they just committed to the lifestyle. But it doesn't take much. You just got to be committed to it.
Right. And you know, the reason I say that all the time is because I watch constantly our instructors trying, you know, making those little tweaks, especially when it's something that's fresh, brand new, and you're just learning the needs of somebody, like, say, an open enrollment for civilians.
Yeah, so open enrollment will, depending on the student, again, if we can get into the weeds and go down the rabbit hole, we definitely like to do that, but it's going to be based on the class. Not every single class will ever be the same. If we get a class, like a teacher in class this week, I know we got a couple law enforcement guys. If the whole class is running really smooth, by the end of day 2, we're probably going to be doing maybe some TL run stuff and more advanced problems and open up the whole house to them and say, all right, go play. You're a TL, figure it out. And we'll set up the scenarios for them. But if they're struggling, then maybe we won't get to that. But either way, you got to kind of just go with the flow and keep it the same.
Right.
Or
Role players?
avoid keeping it the same.
You guys use role players?
Oh, yeah. So for level 1, it's the basics. Actions at the door, stuff like that. Level 2 gets into more movement through the structure. Level 3 is basically the whole house becomes opened up, and that's force on force. And we'll do everything from like the team-based full-on assault with like 2 or 3 bad guys, or hostage rescue, semi a little bit. But we do a lot of role-playing with our solo CQB, which is more pistol-based and more, home defense stuff, which is very time-consuming. We love doing it, but trying to cram so much into one day, we're actually negotiating if we should make it 2 days, because you can only run or 2 people at a time. So it's either add more instructors or shorten the class. We're trying to balance that out right now.
Well, and ours is a 3-day. And the reason we do that is we have that really basic classroom, concealed carry, and home defense.
Okay.
You know, because there's a lot of bleed over in you know, skills and tactics and things that they can start with fundamentally, and then move into the, okay, now you're going to, let's talk about how to set up a point of domination in the home, collect a team in the home, you know, things like that. So the reason I asked about role players, though, is because every team's different. So I know for us, it was, we'll use each other, and then it was a, you know, pissing match because no one wants to lose. And what we find out when we become professional instructors, that those role players can really screw up a scenario.
Yes, absolutely.
They're 50+% of the training.
Oh, yeah.
And so where do you guys try to reach out and get your role players from?
So we will, most of the time, let the students be the role players, or we can jump in as the role players, because, like you just said, it's very important to drive home whatever fundamental you're trying to really nail home. If it gets jacked up by a half-assed role player, you don't want that bad rep. Right. And I would rather, obviously everybody wants a good positive rep, but then a shitty rep with a long debrief just doesn't sit the same way. So I'll jump into role-playing scenarios if I have to, because it's hit or miss. I also really love the idea of the students kind of going against each other, that they're on the same playing field, so they get to see the bad guy's perspective.
Yes.
And even our team-based stuff, I like sometimes throwing, like, all right, yeah, give me the most senior SWAT guys you got. All right, you're the bad guys. Go hide. Whatever you want to do. Because that worthy adversary, why not train to that high level of like, okay, this is like the worst thing we could possibly encounter, is maybe that veteran who's a former SF guy who's off his rocker and now he wants to kill people, and you got to go get him. Like, you have to train for that worthy adversary. Like, the basic crackhead who wants to shoot back at you, easy day. But the guy who's got some training and really wants to be that worthy adversary, you can be ready for that occasion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know one thing that we borrowed, because nothing's really original, right?
No, definitely not law enforcement.
Is that you've had to be a student in the class prior, then you can come back and play role player. That way we don't take from the student body, and those students now have a reason to come back and revisit us, and they don't have to pay for a class. They just get to see it from the other side of the door, which is pretty cool.
One thing we do that I think is a lot of fun, because I like to even do it, is we do CQB Tuesdays, which is...
I saw that.
So it's definitely one Tuesday every month. Sometimes if there's enough people, we'll do it another Tuesday. But it's open house. So you can set up your own drills. It's not really run by us. oversee and facilitate, make sure everybody's safe, obviously. And then every other month is force on force. So we'll jump in and we'll help prep scenarios and we'll role play and do stuff like that. And people bring their kids. Like we got one guy, John, he brings his son in and we have a role player of like a hostage situation with a kid because he just brings his kid and he likes his guns and he likes to shoot. So it's we bring a lot of guys, bring their families in. It's a nice little community, a little family that we kind of build down there.
Yeah. And then talking about students, law enforcement, when you're training them, where do you see their biggest deficiencies in a generalized, like arena?
Lately, I've been actually really happy with the younger crop, which has probably always been that way. Most of the stuff we're teaching now is newer. CQB is very different than the old dynamic entry stuff.
Yeah,
so, and I don't know if you ever heard of the Raiders. Like I'm from South Florida. There was an old TAC unit back in like the 90s in South Florida, and all they did was warrants, fast, aggressive, and they did a ton of warrants to the point where they were like internationally known. But now we're trying to teach the opposite of that slow, methodical CQB. That's been the opposite of what's been beat into everybody. And a lot of people like it, but it's like anything else. Like that old dog, new trick thing is really like struggling. And some people embrace it and they're like, wow, I just want more reps of this. I really like it. And some are like, I'm so close to retirement, I don't give a shit.
Right.
So it is frustrating, but I would definitely say the guys who are 5 years or less on are all about it. They're spending thousands of dollars of their own money to go train with other instructors. And they're calling like, hey, I want to go take a range class. Who do I call? Blah, blah, blah. And like they'll spend their own money to travel. Like the newer generation, some of them are a little soft, but I would say a good percentage of the guys I'm seeing are like really motivated and want to be good at their jobs and be safe at their job, which is motivating for me. So I like to see it.
Well, and being one of the older guys that you're referring to, we, for some reason, and it's not a good thing, we have this bad habit of thinking, well, the bad guys aren't adapting to our tactics. Well, they are. And nobody found that out better than going overseas and 20 years on that global war on terror. And then those, because, when they wanted to go over there and now we're in an urban setting, they came to us, SWAT guys, hey, this is what we're doing. We're chalk, jungle warfare from the last campaign. And so what should we be thinking about? Boom, they go over there, then they come back. Okay, here's how they're progressing with that. And so with that knowledge transfer just really accelerated how the tactics work. And it's funny because, everything works from the coast in. I swear it does. Because when I was in the Navy, I lived on both coasts and I saw things that, and then came back here 3 years later and was just getting to the Midwest. A little bit quicker now with social media. But what we're starting to find out, the same thing, is those guys that are just right on the edge of either getting out or off a team are a little bit more reluctant to, and they're not doing as well either.
No,
they're.
I would say I'm blessed because I grew up my SWAT career. I had amazing instructors and amazing team leaders and amazing SWAT command, and even our oldest guy on the team, he's over 30 years, and I think over 20 on SWAT. And the guy's probably written a book on SWAT entries and every type of SWAT scenario you can think of. And it's funny because we joke about it. He took a class with John Dufresne, Duffy, and it was a red dot pistol class like, 5 or 6 years ago. And he's like, whatever. And Duffy's like picking on him a little bit and making fun of him. And he shoots with a red dot on our night vision. He's like, this is the greatest thing ever. And it was like the weirdest epiphany. And then he's like obsessed. We need red dots and we need night vision and we need everything. And I'm like, let's go for it. And I'm sad to see him go. He's retiring in a couple months, but the guy's got a ton of knowledge. And I wish him the best, but he's probably the perfect definition of a guy who's done everything, but he's still willing to learn everything that's tactics are evolving into, which is what I hope every team has, because I'm blessed to have something like that on my team.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's go to civilian side now. Biggest deficiency you see in the civilians in their training?
Seeing nonsense on the internet and trying to apply it to the shoot house. Everybody wants to go stupid fast and do crazy stuff, or they'll see something and not understand the context of it. Because most of the time I'll show people like the basics, or I'll breeze over the basics a little bit. All right, now how would you do it? Like, all right, now let's talk about it. And where'd you see that from? Where'd you learn that from? Now, I'll never trash talk another instructor, but I'll show you, like, here's my why. And we teach CQB as a way. Okay, there's a million ways for us to do this, and my partner Jack and I always joke, like, we're not fucking Mandalorians. It's not this is the way. No, there's a million ways to do this. If you like our way, cool. If you don't, okay, it's your gunfight. I can't teleport and take your place. But hopefully, if you can take one thing away that may save your life, great. But that's a lot of bad stuff we see. Is you'll see something on the internet, and it's instructors doing weird stuff, and they're not taking the role that they have responsibly. It's a huge pet peeve. Like, what you're teaching could save their life or get them killed. Like, that's the reality of it. And some instructors just want to, like, pound their chest and, like, take their money and tell cool war stories. Like, no shit, there I was. Like, you know, there you were. And look what you're doing. You're kind of hurting the industry.
Right.
And hurting your students, but we won't go down that rabbit hole.
Well, and it got prolific. You're right. I mean, it was an easy way for guys getting out to think, well, there's an easy buck right there. Mm-hmm. The good news is about that, this industry's badass. Mm-hmm. It's small. Yes. It's intimate.
It won't take long for them to be exposed.
That's right. They get exposed. And the ones that are in it to help each other and see the industry grow and get the best training for the students, period, are the ones that survive and move forward. But you said something that's so key, and that we talk about a lot, and that's context. Mm-hmm. And it dawned on me. So when our chief training officer came, and you came 21 years out of Special Forces, and his idea of being able to train open enrollment was so, like, he didn't know. Mm-hmm. And it just hadn't been part of the industry. Yeah. And so when we started talking about courses and stuff, and he's talking about, well, I'm just going to show them this, and I'm going to do this, and this, I'm like, they don't know. They don't have a why. Yeah. And they're going to tell you family, friends, whatever, but they've never had that challenge. Mm-hmm. They've never had somebody look at you the way that the Muslims looked at us when we got over there. It rocks you, or even on the street, having that person that just absolutely hates the badge and the way they look at you. These people have never had that. They've never had to defend anything.
Nope.
And so they lack context, and it's not their fault.
No.
But also what you said, and we agree with, is they want to jump into the go fast, look good stuff, and they don't want to build the skills necessary to do well in here. Yeah. So what's funny about that, in a way, is we'll get comments on videos or reels or TikToks or whatever, and people are like, well, what's wrong with that guy crossing his feet? I hope you guys aren't training that. No, we never train that, right? Mm-hmm. Okay? This is a training environment. It's a pressure cooker. Yeah. And this is where people come to screw up. Yeah. So they can get fixed. So they don't do it on the street. And
people are just going to be trolls.
I get it. And it's funny, though, because this is a pressure cooker. Mm-hmm. And people think that they can just jump a couple of steps and get in that shoe house because that's where all the cool stuff happens. They don't realize that they just forgot how to manipulate a handgun or a rifle or walk. They can't even walk. Oh, yeah. And that's when you are able to pull them aside and say, this is why, that tactical pistol or that tactical rifle course, that defensive course, you should have been taking a little bit more of that. That's going to help you here. But that's what's nice about here, the shoot house. And Don Edwards says it best, and he talks about, when you come here, this is where you put it all together. This is a culmination. Then you find out those deficiencies, and you go back on the live range and fix it.
Oh, yeah. And you'll hear me say it in class this week, like, you've been walking through doors and in the structures your entire life up until this point. Now I'm going to put a gun in your hand, and you're going to be like Simple Jack. You don't know how to move through a house because you're holding a gun. Like, IQs just drop because, we don't know what the whole factor is. I'm actually a little bit of a nerd, and I'm studying to get my master's in psychology slowly but surely. But I'm intrigued for the learning process, but I don't know why. Just maybe comfort level, but people just completely, brain turns off. And it's not until you get 10,000 reps where it's like, oh, second nature, no big deal. So, it interests me.
Yeah, and I just saw that North American Rescue put out a study done, and it was based on trauma care. So tourniquet, all that. They took a group of people, and I think you can apply this. I know you can apply this to firearms training, too. Mm-hmm. And they said, okay, we're going to train this group with audio and flashcards. This group, we're going to give video instruction, YouTube, right? Patreon.
Sure.
This group, they're going to go to class. And the numbers were wild. So the flashcard audio people did 23% of them that were able to come back a week later and perform any of what they learned. 20% of the YouTube, Patreon, the video watchers, so it was lower, couldn't reproduce what they learned. 88% that took the class.
Interesting.
So those are great numbers, and I love seeing something like that. And I know that was based on trauma, but I really think it'd be very similar numbers.
You can teach anything that way.
Correct. And so the more people that, because you said that, and you hit it, is the people that think that, oh, I watched that, I can do that. Yeah. You can't. Matter of fact,
they see the
only 8 of you can.
Yeah, they see the John Wick movies and stuff. Like, no.
Only 2 of you can recreate that, and it's not you.
Yeah.
Because as guys, we always think, I'm that guy.
Yeah,
I'm the one.
I wish it was that easy, trust me.
It's not. And then, I think we both can agree that one of the huge training deficiencies in both sets, all sets, whether they're armed professionals or armed citizens, is going to be physical fitness.
Oh, absolutely. And we can talk in great depth about that. Because you're in law enforcement. How many fights have you been in?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
hundreds, right?
I went and worked a psych ward for a little while.
Okay, so you've thrown hands a couple times.
A lot.
It's like the first part, unless it's like an active shooter or you walk in a bank robbery or something like that, you're more likely to encounter a crazy drunk person in a bar, or God forbid, you're going to end up in hand-to-hand combat first of all. So I'm always going to preach martial arts need to be part of your life. But if you're a big slop and you can't last 10 seconds in a fight, or you're so out of shape that your body can't handle a little bit of stress, you think you're magically going to rise to this occasion of full-on stress, life or death, you're fooling yourself greatly. Yeah. And it's a shame that people have fooled themselves because it's going to cost you your life one day if you don't want to take it seriously. But.
You're right. And at what point do we draw the line? And, it's no more, soft hands about the subject. I mean, because the chief complaint we get on an 8-hour, 10-hour day on the live range or in the shoot house is the back pain and the fatigue that goes along with it. The legs are cramping. That's going to happen no matter what physical shape you're in if it's new.
Correct.
But the body adapts quickly and better. And it's also about recovery. You and I know that.
Yes.
And recovery is where it really matters, both in your cardio and your muscle fatigue. And so when it comes to people coming in here that's their profession, it's really should be a zero tolerance.
I think it was by somebody Joe Rogan hosted. Like, there's no such thing, or no, it was Cameron Haynes, I think. There's no such thing as overtraining, but there's under recovery.
Yeah. So, because he doesn't care about sleep. He made that apparent.
Well, he's an animal, regardless.
Yeah. Those guys are always on the next level. So talking about physical fitness, tell me a little bit about your fitness journey, because you've got a little bit of a vested interest in, and so as far back as you can remember, let's go.
Oh God! All right, minus a few concussions, I'll do the best. All right, so my fitness journey, or where I got kind of obsessed with working out, is I actually had open heart surgery when I was 14 years old. My grandfather, he's since passed. He was a World War II vet, and he was I think he retired as a lieutenant from Miami PD. A couple local kids were dropping dead from unknown heart conditions, and his family's got bad hearts. Takes me to his cardiologist, and they're like, let's run a test. I don't like this test. 5 or 6 tests later, I'm having open heart surgery a couple of months later. Went from being recruited in high school, freshman in high school, being recruited for colleges already, to losing like 30 pounds and looking like a frail cancer patient. And it killed my morale. I was like, oh my God. I basically lost a whole year of athletics. But then got a strength conditioning coach. Never had one before. First time I've ever been coached on how to really work out. And gained all this weight back and got bigger, faster, and stronger. I was like, oh my God, this seems so easy. And I was never a really gifted athlete, but I was a guy who would work his ass off. Ended up going to UCF, trying to walk on, tore my Achilles tendon, or I did walk on, tore my Achilles tendon. Realized my body is not really built for college sports, so switched over to the strength conditioning side. They offered me an internship and then offered me a job Worked under Coach Ed Ellis and Scott Sinclair. Coach Sinclair is now the head strength coach at UGA, national champ, so congrats to Coach.
Yep.
And worked for UCF for about 6 years and learned a ton under the two of them. When we won the Fiesta Bowl, I decided it was the greatest job I ever had because I learned so much and couldn't believe I got paid for it, but there was no job security, unfortunately. And if you know college sports, the head football coach and the head strength and conditioning coach that does football are usually tied together, and if one leaves, the other one's going to. So you're bouncing around usually 3 or 4 colleges within 10 or 15 years of your career, depends on where you end up. Didn't want that at the time, so always wanted to do military law enforcement. Said, all right, I'm going to give myself a year to get hired as a cop. It took the first place I applied to get hired, lucky me, and ended up getting into law enforcement from there. But got my degrees from UCF in exercise science, sports and exercise science, and worked as a professional or college Division I strength coach for about 6 years, and tried to learn as much as I could along the way. Still very much involved in the community in that. Still try to read as much as I can. I'm definitely a nerd. A couple of people I converse with on a regular basis, like Jeff Nichols, who's a retired Navy guy, who's probably one of the best strength and conditioning minds for tactical athletes. Stu Smith. Steve Smith's a nutritionist who's, I think, with the Giants, who's a great nutrition guy as well. The industry for the tactical athlete, which I hate that term, is definitely growing, and it needs to be growing. I just wish they would change the name from something besides tactical athlete because it sounds almost like Walmart branded. Yeah, that's pretty much my journey, how I got here.
That's funny because one of my Gmails is tactical athlete. No, it's tacthlete.
I mean, my Instagram was tactical human performance, so tactical is still a thing.
Did you ever get involved with Rob Shaw at military athlete?
No, I started to reach out. I started that Instagram page of tactical human performance before I ever got into teaching CQB because I just wanted to write workout programs and help guys get ready for SWAT school or ready for an academy. Just do a little something on the side. If you're not having a side hustle, you're probably not working hard enough.
Yeah.
And plus, I grew up with a million firefighters in my family, and they all had a side hustle.
Yeah.
So, because they don't work. But whatever.
That's right. They know
they have a lot of downtime.
They know a lot.
Anyways, but yeah, that's where it started, and then ran into Dave, and we hit it off and started working for him. So it's kind of taken a little bit of a back burner, but I'm probably within the next year, hopefully I can get it done. I'm trying to build the website so I can offer workout programs, some nutrition advice type stuff, or at least point people in the right direction for that because I'm not huge into nutrition. Like I have cheat days probably more than anybody. My wife and I live on ice cream sandwiches. My wife's got a 6-pack and she's had one since she was 2, and she lives on peanut M&Ms and coffee.
Yeah.
I don't know. Love her to death, but she's the woman everybody hates because she's always going to have a 6-pack. Oh, yeah.
It is. It really comes down to that. Trust me, the 50-year-old dude's telling you. That's what it comes down to. When you fix those, it fixes a lot of things.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm not saying that I can just eat ice cream sandwiches every day because that sounds awesome.
Yeah, that's not bad.
I'd be diabetic. I'd have diabetes. But yeah, so Rob Shaw did the military athlete stuff, and in 2006 I got introduced to CrossFit, and I was like, "What is this?" And it's like 20-minute workouts that I just couldn't breathe afterwards. And then I saw what he was doing, and that was the warm up, and then it was like we need strength, endurance, and be able to have work capacity too, and strong, swift, and deadly, kind of thing. And I was like, man, let's go. I just fell head over heels for that kind of training, and it was so well rounded that from 2008 to 14 I trained it straight, and I tried to start coaching people with it, and it was phenomenal. I thought it was great, but the whole point of that, and especially with your terminology being the tactical human performance, I always thought of that being the transition from traditional type of lifting and bodybuilding and powerlifting over to the combat fitness and getting a combat chassis.
So there's no reason, in my opinion, that if you're paid to carry a gun, you're not treating your body like an athlete should. And that includes injury prevention, eating right, hydrating properly, like something as simple as taking care of your feet. Like, you ever work a shift with like an ingrown toenail that's driving you nuts, and all you can think about every step you take when you're trying to look for somebody, like it just hurts like there's little things that you can be doing that an athlete would be doing for a game, like that, especially because you're doing a much different job, but it can cost you your life, that they should be like paralleling each other. We're not going to get the same resources as maybe a professional athlete, but there's no reason why you can't make something work. The world is literally at our fingertips. Now you can buy anything on Amazon at the click of a button. That'll probably a million things that could make your life easier in the athletic world. Some of it's obviously gimmicky nonsense, but a $10 foam roller, which is probably like $40 now because of inflation, but whatever. But a foam roller and making sure you're properly hydrated and things like that, eating clean. If you're on midnight shift, I get the whole nutrition thing. I'm actually working on some stuff like that for our midnight shift guys. But meal prepping companies, there's like a dozen you can find online. So many. Like it's never been easier to be healthy in law enforcement, but there's still people that are just going against the grain, or they're so set in their ways, and it's frustrating.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's being lazy.
Yeah.
And like I told you earlier when you first got here, it's also there's no more very little competition, especially in the hiring shortages right now. Mm-hmm. So little competition for your position. Mm-hmm. If you had to compete for that position based on your physical fitness and your tactical fitness, then you would have to change.
Oh yeah,
and make sure you were on point. And there were days like that. They're gone right now, and it's not good.
Oh yeah, now you get a pulse check, and I gotta go to the academy.
Yeah, that's it. Unfortunately, so now going back to training industry and firearms, what's one thing that has surprised you the most about this industry?
Try to put this nicely.
And you don't have to.
There's a lot of bullshit that I never imagined. Clever marketing is more important than really.
It is.
And like again, I'm not going to shit talk anybody specifically ever, but just off the top of my head, like spending a couple $100,000 on marketing a product, and the product gets tested by 20 people, and it turns out to be shit, but it's got the brand name, it's got clever marketing, and somebody cool on Instagram is running it, they still sell $20 million worth of it. Like, the reality of it doesn't make sense to me. Which, I mean, I'm jealous because it's not my money, I guess, but it's just weird dynamics. Like, it's very easy, I guess, to bait these customers, and I'm lucky I've learned better. My process is trying to educate people like, hey, maybe be educated consumers, because you can't always try the gun before you buy it. You can't always like try the class before you sign up for it, type of thing. But buyer beware type of stuff. It's frustrating to see people get taken advantage of just for a couple bucks.
Yeah.
But on a mass scale, like companies are making big money off of taking advantage of some consumers.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's capitalism, and that's in all the industries. So I came from a motorsports background, and law enforcement's actually my second career. It happened there, and what frustrated me the most is mine was all driven off of a passion for what I was doing. Still is. That's what matters most, is the quality of the product, the service, and the passion for doing it. That's the richness that I get, and I know the people, because most instructors aren't really bringing it down, right? But the smoke and mirrors folks are millionaires.
Yeah.
And it's the popularity, and it doesn't matter what the real quality is.
No.
And we see it all the time, and I do see it in this industry. That's why one of my goals as we grow as MTAC and our brand is to provide media services for all the people that are willing to have it.
That's awesome.
And help them get seen on the larger scale, because they should be passionate about what they're doing, not trying to figure out the formulas and all that other stuff. Let a company do that isn't going to just charge you $8,000 a month to do it, because that's also bad.
Yeah.
I don't like that either. But there's ways to do the partnerships and work on getting more exposure without having to forfeit your beliefs, your integrity.
Oh, that's the more disheartening thing, is when you start seeing people that maybe I used to look up to before I got into this business at all. I'd be like, I always watch YouTube channels, and then you start paying more closer attention, like, wow, he kind of represents everybody. He's almost like a NASCAR driver now. You just got stickers all over you. You're just repping everybody. So basically, anybody that writes you a check, oh, this is the greatest product ever. So, and that's something we are fundamentally against. Like, we're not just going to work with somebody because they're trying to offer us money. We've been very picky. We've proudly turned a couple people down for, like, again, some rifle companies were trying to poach us at SHOT Show and stuff like that. But no, like, if your quality is not up to a standard in the industry, sorry. Like, if you want to pay us a consulting fee, go ahead. We'll try to help you get there. But we're not whores. Sorry.
Yeah, no.
You can't buy us.
No, and there's good people to work with out there.
Oh, yeah,
I know
absolutely.
we have a few that we work with, and one of them, they're from Indiana. They manufacture 100% of their stuff in Indiana, and it's a really good product.
Perfect.
That's us. Yeah. We're all about supporting somebody down the street,
absolutely,
especially when it's a decent product.
Absolutely.
They don't do anything nasty,
no.
and it's a great company to be affiliated with. A boot company loves to give all of our people in our SWAT school boots.
Yeah.
I'm hanging out with them.
Yeah.
Because that's really cool. It was their suggestion.
Yeah.
We didn't go to them. It was really cool.
It's basically the way I just had this conversation with Dave not that long ago. I'm actually making a patch called, it's going to look like a stamp that says good dude. And it's like, I'll talk about somebody, hey, you know this guy? Oh, yeah, he's a good dude.
I like that.
And that ends up being like the little stamp of approval in the industry. Like, okay, if somebody you respect says, yeah, that's a good dude, like, okay, that's somebody that actually would want to have a beer with, have a conversation with, maybe work with in some project or form or fashion. Like, that should mean something to a lot of people in this industry and cut away some of the nonsense. Yeah. Because there's a lot of it, and it's like, yeah, I definitely underestimated it, to say the least. This was my first SHOT Show. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm no one special. I'm just somebody who's passionate about the process of teaching and learning, especially when it comes to CQB and firearms. But being new to it, it was overwhelming how much nonsense I was exposed to right out the gate.
Of it.
Yeah.
There's a ton of it. And it'll always be there.
I know.
But
it's like seeing behind the curtain.
Exactly. There's a funnel, and we all end up running across each other in that funnel, and the ones that are all good dudes.
Yeah. And on the plus side, I've also met some absolutely incredible people that I never would have ever had the chance to meet had not been for being exposed to this industry. So there's pros and cons. Definitely a lot more nonsense than there is good, but
yeah. Still. Absolutely. Well, I think we're fortunate to have you guys up here. I think, with John being a bridge there and talking about us, and then you calling and saying, hey, we're from Indiana. We're like, really? No, you don't. No, you don't. No, so, we're excited to have you. So you said something about, being new a little bit to it, and when you were new to it, and continuing to want to get better. Mm-hmm. What are some of the things that you do to keep sharp?
So lucky for me, I'm a full-time instructor at my department, so I get a lot of range time, which I have to fight against it because anyone who's been a law enforcement instructor knows the more you teach, the less you get to shoot, which I'm trying to break that habit. So I'll push myself in the range. I still take classes. Like, I will go train with anybody who has a good reputation. I've taken John's classes like 3 or 4 times, and because he always changes his stuff. I think I've taken his rifle class 2 or 3 times. I forget.
I'm taking it next week.
Yeah, perfect. and because John's also just a lot of fun to freaking hang out with, so he's always a good time.
That's great.
But I'll have conversations just like this, or I'll be driving to work or from a class, and I'll call Dave or our other partner and be like, hey, I saw this scenario. What do you guys think? How would you tackle this? And just start round tabling stuff, or hey, we had this weird call out and we started doing this, and just roundtable discussions, and basically my own little debriefs, if you will. And then trying to see what other people are doing. Maybe somebody's got a cooler idea that I haven't seen yet. The stuff we teach is from highest levels of the military, but maybe there's something new that we all haven't seen yet. Who the hell knows? So you should never stop trying to push the envelope in any way, shape, or form. Even if it's doing little puzzles you got little sketches of structures, like, all right, how would I move through here, move through there, okay, and so it's just the higher level of problem solving. And it's even just doing Sudoku if you want to be better at solving puzzles, because in my opinion, CQB at the highest level is like you're playing a musical instrument and riding a bike and doing Sudoku all at the same time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, and it's weird how it taps into your brain that way, but it's probably one of the most fun things you can do once you get addicted to it.
Yeah. Well, and we had our SWAT commander meeting yesterday, and one of the things that just hit me during one of our CQB instructor courses was your team has to be like driving a car. Mm-hmm. Everything has to be predictable to go correct. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things that we're trying to teach is, each person in that stack has to be predictable. Does the same thing when they turn right, mm-hmm. does the same thing when they turn left. At this intersection, they do the same thing. That's how we drive.
Oh, yeah.
There are accidents when something unpredictable happens, mm-hmm. right? And that's the same thing with CQB, is something didn't happen the way it's supposed to happen. It was unpredictable, so it caused the accident. So, but anyway, we were verbalizing that yesterday, roundtabling, mm-hmm. and that just kind of came out, and then we're all like, yeah, it is like that. It's and so that's a good way to try to explain it to a team who's really fighting against some of the tactic changes or whatever. So
yeah, that's good. It's definitely a good point, and I'm happy to hear and see a lot of guys are evolving to newer styles of CQB.
Yes,
it's even in like my Tri-County area down south. It's maybe just a handful of teams are still doing dynamic, but the majority they have options. Yeah. It's not just this is the only way. Or no, there's surrounding callouts. There's deliberate clearance, control clear, combat clear, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
There's a million names for it.
Yeah.
As long as you've found a safe way, that's not just, we have one way to tackle this, go. Like, all right, that's how we're going to get jacked up one day.
Yeah.
So
one tool doesn't do it.
No. Yeah. It's got to be a golf bag.
Yeah.
Or a toolbox, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Everybody calls it something different. And, when Luke came on out of first group, mm-hmm. I got calls from some really high-end instructors like, hey, man, if I show up a day early, do you think he could run me? Because he's showing 3 speeds. It's what mm-hmm. first group's doing. Here's, they know that. They know there's somebody fresh coming out.
So, and that's the thing. What's this? Joe Dawson. He's Bruiser Industries on Instagram. Never met the guy, but we talk regularly. He's got a great brain. He's used to be a sniper instructor in the SEAL teams. He made a comment the other day that was like, wow, that really hit me. It's like the second you hang up your plates and you're done, your shelf life is started. You're no longer relevant. Everything you've learned is old.
Yep.
Because the train kept on moving without you. So if you think that when you hung up your plates 10 years ago, that what you were doing CQB-wise is the same now, you're wrong. It shouldn't be, and you just need to accept that. But if you're holding on to it and claiming that you're the greatest, you're part of the problem. Yeah. So
you're drinking your Kool-Aid.
Exactly. So
it
was definitely, when I heard that, I was like, ooh, that was a good one. I wrote that one down.
Yeah, that's a good one. And I actually said that to Luke when he first came in. It's mm-hmm. like, hey, your timestamp's done, buddy.
Oh, yeah.
You got to find a way to stay fresh.
Yeah, but having a fresh set of eyes coming in is always good.
It is always good. And there's a few people like him that can take what they know and start adapting it through mm-hmm. the days. Man, I love those brilliant minds. I mean, they're mm-hmm. way better than mine, and it's so cool to see it adapt. There's a version that the armed professionals get, and there's a version that the armed citizens get, mm-hmm. and they're similar, but they're really different. And it's really cool.
Context has got to apply to the student.
It does.
Armed professional and them don't have the same context, but they're similar. They overlap a little bit. They're just not going to be the exact same.
Last question: who's your favorite instructor to learn from?
Oh, God.
It could be physical fitness or firearms.
Give me 2 seconds.
Yeah, 2 seconds. No problem.
No, and I'll give a shout out to Duffy. Duffy's been a friend and mentor for several years now. So John Dufresne. I love that guy. Yeah, he's a great guy. If you haven't trained with him, y'all need to.
Oh, absolutely. And there's no reason for them not to, because anybody watching this has probably been here.
Yeah,
and he comes here 2-3 times a year.
Yes. So. Yeah. John's the reason we're here. He recommended this place.
He'll be here next weekend.
Yeah. That's it. And he works for cookies, so he's even better.
That's right. That's the best thing about it. Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate your time. You came in early and came straight to the shoot house. And, man, I know that can be tough sometimes, and I do appreciate that.
No, we appreciate you hosting us.
Yep. Well, we're excited to have you. Everybody go check them out, Condition 1 Group. Check out their courses. They'll definitely be back, so if you're missing this weekend, look and see and come back when they're here again. So that's it for me. And if you like what you're seeing, smash that thumbs up. If you don't like it, hit the thumbs down. Either way, you're talking to us, and that's what we appreciate. Until next time.